William Hartnell was the first actor to lead Doctor Who when the show began in 1963, but it took Matt Smith's 11th Doctor to bring back one of the character's most underutilized character traits. As the first of all the actors to play the Doctor, Hartnell helped kickstart the Time Lord's now vast lore, including the ability to regenerate, which was introduced at the end of one's reign. By the time Smith was cast, the franchise canon was bursting at the seams, but that didn't stop showrunner Stephen Moffat from reminding the audience about a key fact of the Doctor's character. The early stages of Doctor Who's classic era were incredibly improvisational. While the show's post-revival form has decades of lore to lean upon when telling its stories, the franchise's formative years had to make steady additions to the canon for the show's universe and its main character. Of course, world-building still happens in Doctor Who's modern era, but as with anything, it's all started to slow down a little and settle into a bit of a groove. While it's important to always keep Doctor Who moving forward, Moffat also understood the importance of the saga's storied history. Matt Smith's 11th Doctor was the first to live for centuries since William Hartnell's. Moffat restored the Doctor's potential for a very long life. The first Doctor fully lived up to his alien nature by hugely bypassing the average human lifespan. Although there is quite a lot of debate about exactly how long the Doctor spent in his first form, it's widely accepted that Hartnell's Doctor lived for hundreds of years. In fact, one was already over 200 years old when he stole his TARDIS and ran away from Gallifrey, and he travelled with Hartnell's face for even longer than that. After Patrick Troughton took over as the second Doctor, this element of the character fell by the wayside. It wasn't until Stephen Moffat took over as the showrunner and installed Matt Smith as 11 in 2010 that the show started to plant the seeds of a Doctor with such incredible longevity. In between Hartnell and Smith, every other actor to that point had only played Doctors who had remained in their respective forms for a handful of decades, and some even shorter than that. For instance, Christopher Eccleston's 9th Doctor regenerated roughly a year after transitioning from his 8th form, Paul McGann. Similarly, David Tennant's 10th Doctor's timeline ended after just 6 in-universe years. Moffat removed the rule of one season of modern Doctor Who, meaning the Doctor aged by 1 year, and started to include larger and larger time jumps for 11. 10 claims he was 906 years old in his final episode, and by 2013's The Day of the Doctor, Smith's version of the Time Lord claims to be 1,200 years old. Even if he's off by a decade or 3, this is still a far longer life than any of the Doctors since Hartnell. He then spends another few centuries defending a town called Christmas before regenerating. Doctor Who's other Moffat-era Doctors also lived for a very long time. 12 and the War Doctor had long lives like 11 and 1. Stephen Moffat loved making full use of the Doctor's alien biology. Although Smith could arguably have been a standout Doctor after living for so very long, the showrunner extended the trend to include the other 2 Doctors he introduced. Firstly, John Hurt's War Doctor, while only ever appearing in 1 episode, was revealed to have also stayed in the same form for hundreds of years as the Time War raged. Although created as a character after 11 in the real world, the War Doctor actually canonically came just before 9, technically making Hurt's iteration the one to revive one's achievement. Peter Capaldi replaced Smith in 2013, and the 12th Doctor was also afforded the opportunity to travel for hundreds of years. Even without taking 12's timey-wimey story in Heaven Sent into account, he was still one of the longest-living versions of the Doctor. When Moffat and Capaldi both decided to leave, showrunner Chris Chibnall adopted Moffat's renewal of the Doctor's long lifespan by having Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor also experience a centuries-long existence. It's still too early to tell whether Russell T Davies intends to give Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor such a long run, or even Tennant's 14th. Why most of the Doctor's regenerations don't last very long. The Doctor is often at risk when saving the day. The Doctor never really lives safely, and if a certain regeneration does have a period of low activity, it's either for a very specific reason or it never lasts very long. The various versions of the Doctor are pretty much always, by their very nature, right in the middle of the action. They all thrive when they are helping people, and those who need said help are quite often found in dangerous scenarios. So, wherever the TARDIS lands, deathy regeneration is always seemingly a possibility for the Doctor during or after the adventure. Sometimes, the Doctor can't avoid that danger. While there's some debate about whether regeneration is akin to dying, the 10th Doctor openly confirms in At the End of Time that he believes the 2 processes are identical. This may not be a view that's shared by every version of the Time Lord, but it would make sense if it was. This reinforces just how selfless a Doctor is each time they sacrifice themselves in order to save lives. Although functionally immortal, each Doctor likely views themselves as a separate entity, and many decide to give up what could have been a very long existence in the name of heroism. Why it's better when the Doctor has a longer lifespan. The Doctor's alien origin means the character should spend longer in each form. Although there are some advantages to watching a Doctor's life unfold in relative real time, it's almost always more rewarding when a version of the Time Lord lives for an incredibly long period. That way, it drives home the fact that the Doctor is an alien, which can be easy to forget at times due to their human appearance. Plus, it makes the Doctor seem even more godlike than they often already do. In addition, centuries-long lifespans can help explain a vital component of the Doctor's character. Every version is incredibly knowledgeable about almost everything, but it doesn't always seem to make sense how the Doctor could know so much, despite being so old. I've always assumed that most of the Doctor's adventures happen off-screen, even for versions that don't live very long, like Eccleston's Ninth. However, a longer-living Doctor means even more unseen Doctor Who stories, as the show can only show so much, but the Doctor continues to have even more hidden experiences.